Welcome to Beyond the Page, the official podcast of Choice, the magazine of professional coaching, where we bring you amazing insights and in-depth features that you just won't find anywhere else. I'm your host, Gary Schleifer, and I'm excited to expand your learning as we dive into this latest article, have a chat with this brilliant author behind it, and uncover the learnings that are transforming the coaching world. When you get a chance, join our vibrant community of coaching professionals as we explore groundbreaking ideas, share expert tips and techniques, and make a real difference in our clients' lives, which is absolutely what all us coaches love to do. Remember, this is your go-to resource for all things coaching. But for now, let's dive in. In today's episode, we're speaking with executive leadership coach Cheryl Procter-Rogers, who's the author of an article in our latest issue, Coaching Anti-Racism and the Backlash Against DEI. Her article is entitled Coaching Through Microaggressions, Helping Clients Recognize, Respond, and Heal. A bit about Cheryl. She's an MCC, which is the Master Certified Coach with International Coaching Federation. She also holds an APR and is a fellow PRSA, an award-winning strategist and executive leadership coach with more than 40 years' experience. She has served as Vice Chair and Secretary Treasurer of the International Coaching Federation Global Enterprise Board and as a National President of the Public Relations Society of America. A prolific writer, and for sure for choice, thank you, Cheryl. She's authored more than 200 articles and has been featured in and contributed to chapters of over 20 books on public relations and coaching. A sought-after speaker, she shares thought leadership on topics such as executive presence, leadership effectiveness, and strategic communications. Thanks for joining us today, Cheryl.
I'm so excited to be here and talk about this topic, Garrett.
Okay, why is this topic so near and dear to you?
Well, certainly as an African American woman, I have been in many situations where I have experienced microaggressions. And for many years, I really thought it was just all about the race
Mm,
and how marginal members of the community might be experiencing microaggressions. But as I did more research around the topic, I found that it was much broader. And so that made me excited to learn more and to certainly share.
yeah, well, thank you very much. And thank you for writing this article. And you bring up a really good point. And it's something that we were talking about before, and I'd love to hear more about. And that is like, I'm a white man of privilege. And you're a black woman, for those that aren't watching, Cheryl's a black woman. And I brought up the subject, and I'm curious about, is it is it usually a race thing when it's like a guy like me in a room? Am I the one most likely to be offending through the microaggressions?
Well, it depends. And the thing that I find really important to know is that microaggressions can be experienced by people who are not a person of color,
Mm,
because that's the first thing we think about. But it's whoever is in a marginalized situation. For instance, you could have a whole team, and the team could be all women and one man.
mm,
So that one man could start feeling and experiencing microaggressions. You
mhm,
might have a team where most have been together and working together 5 years or more, and then a new person is brought into the team. That person is in that marginalized category of being the newbie,
mhm.
right?
Wow.
And can experience microaggressions. Um, Often, when an individual moves from one position within an organization to another, when they get a promotion,
Hmm.
they can start to feel and experience microaggressions. And then there are those individuals who are perpetuators of, they are, they are, um, I would say most, Gary, I really believe that most are not even aware that they are creating these kinds of experiences for others.
Yeah. So how do you help those people see their transgressions?
Well, there's several things that you can think about. So when you are the one who is experiencing the microaggression, and you know for sure that you're feeling something, and you might say to yourself, wow, did this just happen? Did this person just say this to me? And to really focus on the intent,
Mm,
because when it happens to you, you can start to feel all kind of emotions, and we can certainly talk about how you use an emotion wheel to identify exactly what those are. But to actually first pause, there's this 3P
mhm,
framework: pause, process, proceed.
mm,
So if you're experiencing a microaggression, pause. And I love Marilyn uh, Hearn's tool that she shared with me. Oh my gosh, I want to say 20 years ago. And it's the word wait, WAIT.
mhm.
And it's an acronym for why am I talking? And so you want to tap into your own emotions and ask, like, because before you say anything comes out of your mouth, right? You think it first and hopefully you process it before it comes out. But to wait and pause, take that deep breath, check in with your own emotions, and then to process, what is the uh, scenario in which we're in?
Mhm.
Was this intentional or not? And how is it impacting me? But not to focus so much on the impact, but on the intent.
Okay.
And so, as someone who's experiencing a microaggression, to really focus more on that intent will help you also to start to manage your emotions
Yeah.
and then proceed. Pause, process, and proceed. You have a lot of options there, Gary. And so you can be confrontational.
True.
You could use humor. You could use what I call strategic silence, or you could delay and have a conversation with the person at another time.
Right.
But proceeding requires you to think about how you want to respond, not react. We hear that all the time. We want
Mhm.
to
Oh,
respond,
good
not
distinction.
react. Yes.
Yeah.
And what's the right modality for that, or the right communications vehicle?
Oh.
So if you're in a meeting and this happens, then you might decide to use humor, or you might just use silence. Sometimes I've used just one phrase.
Mhm.
I'm just not sure how to respond to that.
Mm.
And so you also want to think, if it's coming through an email or some other written communication, Is it appropriate to respond in kind, or is that the time to schedule a call or pick up the phone and have a conversation? So not only do you want to proceed with the proper um, response, but you also want to think about, is this something that we should talk about in person? So you want to have the opportunity to develop your own criteria
Hmm.
of what you believe some action or some comment rises to something that you could actually put in writing, or that you think that you should have a face-to-face conversation about.
Yeah. Wow, so much to think about. And then you also have me thinking, what if is there's the possibility of deciding not to proceed?
Oh, that's always an option and a choice. The thing about microaggressions is that they're like little cuts.
Hmm.
And over time, those little cuts become bigger wounds. It undermines self confidence, certainly uh, jeopardizes trust. And for the person experiencing those microaggressions, there's a sense of not belonging to the tribe, not being a part of the group.
Wow. What's a memorable microaggression for you?
Oh my. I've had many. Um, I think I think one of the most comical ones was I was working for an organization, and I was a pretty senior executive in this organization, and there was a an executive that was in another state, and I'm dating myself, Gary, because this was for Zoom. And so we had a work relationship just by
Okay. Yeah, old school.
phone and fax.
I don't even want to explain
Right.
that to the younger folks what a fax is.
Yes, just use your favorite search engine and type in what is a fax.
And then
F
sit back
A
and laugh.
X.
That was us.
That's right. That's right. So I'm having a conversation, and so we had this business relationship had gone on for several months. And so the person was finally coming to Chicago, and he said to me, I can't wait to meet you. We've been working together so seamlessly. We've accomplished so much. And I'm imagining how you look. And he said,
Hmm.
I'm saying, based on your personality, by voice, that you're a strawberry blonde with blue or green eyes. And so, Gary, my response was, I could have, I could have, been confrontational and,
Right.
what are your assumptions that you don't even imagine that a Black woman could be in this role? But instead, I responded with, I can't wait for you to see me.
Okay, now you have to tell us what was the reaction.
He was First, he came into my well appointed office. My secretary that sat outside of my office was away, maybe, getting coffee or something. And so he came in. I'm sitting at my desk, and he says, excuse me, I'm looking for Cheryl Proctor. I wasn't Procter-Rogers at the time. And I said, that's me. Who are you? Because remember, I haven't seen him.
Right.
He
You
hasn't
haven't seen
seen
each
me.
other.
And he asked again, like this, the brain just couldn't comprehend. And so he asked again. No, no, Cheryl Proctor, the head of PR, and I said, that's me. Are you? Because now it clicked. And he was speechless. And he said, I'll be back. And I never saw him again, and we never worked together again.
Wow. Wow. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, it was his loss.
Of course. Yeah, man. Crazy.
And so many times these microaggressions are really generated by bias and by assumptions and by other factors that create a certain level of intentional or unintentional ignorance.
Mm, yeah. Cheryl, I have one in the back of my head that I've done the strategic silence with. I think that is. But that's the interesting thing. And I'm learning what's a microaggression. Chat 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 was electronic, and it comes upon a situation, and it's like, well, you've never had kids. You would never understand.
Mike, that's a microaggression.
Yes. It's funny. I've held on to that for a long time, and I only today realized that that's in this conversation that's what it was. I've been strategically silent since October.
Yes, yes. And so there's an opportunity, and everyone gets to decide,
Hmm.
is this an opportunity for me to educate someone, or not? And as coaches, we want to help our clients have that safe space
Hmm.
where they can explore and create responses that are in line with their own personal goals and values.
Hmm.
And so, as a coach, you might say, well, how will I ever know if somebody doesn't tell me that they've experienced a microaggression? How would I know as a
Right.
coach?
Yeah.
Well, you'll hear things like you'll hear things. Um, I don't know if I'm being too sensitive, but
Mm.
or I just recently had a meeting with my boss, and I came away from that meeting and something just felt a little off. I
Mm.
didn't feel, I mean, nothing horrible was said. I just didn't feel good. Or things like I was left I was left off of the invite for a meeting
Mm.
again.
Oh.
Um, so we were networking with a client, and everyone just assumed I wasn't the lead. And this is my favorite. Coach, I have imposter syndrome. And usually after exploring that deeper, we'll find that there's been some microaggressions that have been experienced that has undermined that confidence.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Well, as a coach, now I'm going to be looking and digging a bit deeper. For those that are traumatized by it, how do I coach them without re-traumatizing them?
Great question, Gary, because the one thing we do not want to do as coaches is have someone in a session relive that trauma
Right.
because we're not um, educated and licensed, right, as therapists to help them through that. So we want them to focus on the intent. What was the intent of that microaggression from that? Let's speculate and let's explore, and less on the impact. Because when you're focusing on the impact, well, Cheryl, how did you feel? Now you're going to remind me, right? And I'm going to start feeling those emotions again. But if my questions are really more around, when you said that you felt a little off, what about that felt off? And what do you believe the intent of your boss was? And of all of the responses, would it be useful to explore how you might have responded differently?
Mm.
And I would share, or at least ask the client. So when you experience this, what did you come away with? Um, was it uh, Did you feel powerless? Did you mute yourself? What were the indicators to you that you had experienced this, and uh, and that this was your response or reaction?
Mhm.
And so in those conversations, you're taking the client to a future
Mhm.
of how they might respond, and what choices that they might make, whether or not they want to educate this person or just move on. They get to decide that without re-traumatizing them.
Yeah. And would this be the appropriate time to introduce or reintroduce the framework, pause, process, proceed?
I think so. I always ask, would a framework be useful for you
Right.
to have at the ready, if needed?
Hmm.
And then I would introduce that pause and process and proceed framework.
I'm really struck by how significant the difference is between impact and intent.
Oh,
Because when
yeah.
I'm working with clients, especially on difficult situations, we always talk about like the third entity. So it's not them, it's not you. So what's the intent? And if you can make the intent not be about the person, but what was their intent, then it's less affecting on them and less blaming on the other person and more about the situation. And it's like they say in the show, the facts, ma'am, nothing but the facts.
Right, right. And so, it's so important for us to have that antenna go up when we hear certain things. If you hear a client second guessing their own instincts, and,
Mm,
I have a phrase that I should actually trademark and maybe even do a recording so I can get a Grammy. And that phrase is, don't forget what you already know.
mm,
But what happens is they start to get these little microaggressions, these little clips, right? And they start second guessing themselves. And the results can be,
yeah,
it could,
over time,
oh,
devastating and demoralizing
yes,
and
absolutely. Or there can be this, they're just, they come to the session, Gary, and they tell you how fatigued they are, how, they're just exhausted. And then, as a coach, you're going to say, well, what's contributing to this exhaustion? And then there's describing things. And then, you get to, observe. Well, I'm not hearing that you're working too many hours.
right.
I'm not hearing that the the work that's being required of you is outside of your, your scope of experience and knowledge. What's contributing to this fatigue?
Mm,
Can it be emotional or something else? And what we usually find that is that it can be
hmm.
emotional, which is tied to what? Those little cuts.
Yeah. Wow, good connection. Yeah, I never thought of that. I'm excited now. I can't wait to use offer, the framework,
Mhm.
to use with my clients and start to dig a little deeper on those, like those kind of those kind of conversations where they're talking about fatigue, but it's not from overwork, and those little indicators to dig deeper. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Well,
And, we're talking about microaggressions. Certainly it could be something else.
right.
But I would say that probably 80% of the time when we're in that in the area of the things that you and I have talked about here today, that road always leads back to microaggressions.
Yeah. Wow. Lots to think about, Cheryl. Thank you so much. I could go on, and I would want tons more examples, but I think we're getting the general idea. Thank you for bringing it home for me, and I hope for our listeners as well, to just have that in your toolbox of, coaching concepts and ideas and tools such as the framework. And just as we always do, just listen deeper, ask more powerful questions, and, you know, let's help these clients. It's what we love to do, make a difference. Not help, sorry, we don't help, we make a difference.
Yeah, we create an environment where they can explore what's meaningful to them in a way that helps them to grow and prosper.
Yeah, I was going to say that next. Yeah, but you said it much better. As always, the eloquent, fantastic Cheryl Procter-Rogers. I really appreciate it. Now, okay, now was that a microaggression? Because I've also heard that when you say, "Oh, you speak really well," that can sometimes be considered a microaggression.
Yeah, it is.
See, so there she's processing. Awesome. So, thank you very much, Cheryl.
I know your heart and I know your where where things like that come from.
Hmm.
And I know that it isn't an indicator that you believe that African American women are less articulate and able to communicate. I know that for sure.
Thank you. For
So,
sure.
as because I know that for sure, I took your intention, I believe, as you intended, that I am a masterful communicator. I've been doing it for 45 years, and if I'm
Yeah.
not good at it, shame on me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you for your grace, and I love you, and I really appreciate you being here today, with us, and going through microaggressions right to the last minute. I love it. Perfect example, perfect modeling. Um, Cheryl, what would you like our audience to do as a result of the article and this conversation?
To continue to be open to listen and to hear what is being said and what's not being said, not only as a coach, but just as a friend. And to ask those questions and to continue to have that self awareness and to be open to asking those around you to give them permission to educate you. If you ever hear me um, perpetuating a microaggression, uh, I want you to tell me and know that it's not just, people of color or people of a certain sexual orientation, that it could be in a variety of scenarios. And then, as an a bystander, and I know we didn't talk about this, but as a bystander, to become an ally
Right.
and to have, hopefully, that you can access the courage to help someone who's just experienced a microaggression to feel heard or to um, find a path to unmute themselves.
Be an ally.
Yes.
Thank you for that reminder. That I needed to hear as well. So thank you. And I am. And if I do perpetuate, I have, I am, tell people all the time. So thank you for that reminder. And Cheryl, what's the best way to reach you?
My gosh, I love when people connect with me through LinkedIn, Cheryl Procter-Rogers, and to continue the conversation and to continue conversations on other topics because I do love to write, and so I'm always putting something out there.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for your contribution. And thanks for your contribution to the International Coaching Federation. You mentioned Marilyn Hearn. She and I served on the board together way back in the '07, '08, '09, I guess it was. So, yeah, we know each other well. And so say hi when you talk to her.
Yes,
Thank you
she's a
so
legend.
much. Yeah, she's a hoot. Thank you so much for joining us for this Beyond the Page episode and for writing for us again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Page. For more episodes, subscribe via your favorite podcast app, most likely the one that brought you here. If you're not a subscriber to Choice Magazine and you're watching this video, you can sign up for a free digital issue by scanning the QR code. I always get that wrong in the top right corner of our screen. If you're listening and you're not a subscriber, please go to choice-online.com and click the Sign Up Now button. I'm Gary Schleifer. Enjoy the journey of mastery.